Hi, my name is Daniel Raymond Gosling. I'm a filmmaker and VFX artist.
Whoa, hang on. What are you doing?
What do you mean, what am I doing?
I do the intro.
Not
Okay.
anymore, you don't.
Yeah, but if you do the intro, it's just gonna sound the same. So it's gonna be the same repetitive. Hi, my
You're
name is
just saying what
Daniel.
I'm saying, so it is
Yep,
the same.
but it's better.
Okay, but it's funnier if I do it.
It's better. Anyway, here we are. We're gonna do some Batman redesigns. We're gonna redesign Batman and 3 of his villains of our choosing. Let's go.
I feel like I'm being hijacked.
No, you're not.
So, I've always loved Batman, and one of the things I like is how different every version is from each other, for better or worse. It took me a long time to decide what I wanted my version of this world to look like. The idea I settled upon was to ground my take in the 1930s and reimagine Batman to be a private investigator, more akin to Sherlock Holmes. Granted, this isn't new for Batman, but it was the best I could come up with. Designing the Batsuit was a great challenge and had me scratching my head for a few days. The idea I had was to make it more formal and gentlemanly, as opposed to tactical body armour. I wanted it to seem very professionally tailored, something Batman would wear more as a uniform, a symbol of authority. It was important to me that the suit felt real, something that could actually be made in the 1930s, so I put a great deal of thought into how all the pieces fit together, such as the cowl, which is a hood piece with a flap that folds over and clips round on the side of the neck. The eyes and ears are a separate part that wrap around the head, which was inspired by the costume from The Mask of Zorro. The boots, gloves and belt were all based on real life clothing elements from the time. I decided to make the bat emblem white as I liked the visual of him stood in complete shadow, but the logo and eyes almost glow with white in the darkness. I also thought it would help this design stand out from other more traditional batsuits. This was my final result.
Oh,
Yeah.
sick.
Oh, I like the mask design. It looks really cool, and I love how it's simple but efficient. So, for my take on Batman, I knew I wanted to go for a more grounded and younger version. Not as lifeless like the Nolan verse, but it's not as comic-y as the Schumacher films. Okay, I just want to go for a similar vibe to the Batman. Something in the way, bow, bow, bow. I created a mood board to get the sort of vibe I was looking for, using a lot of fan designs as references, as well as designs that fit the vibe I settled with, which was looking at Batman and his world through the lens of the Cold War. So my mood board included a lot of CIA type outfits, as well as suits that came out around the same time, like Superman Red Son and The Dark Knight Returns. This version of Batman is young, around 18 years old, with his suit reflecting that, being a thrown together outfit using old equipment he could find, or what was given to him by Alfred, who in this continuity is a former MI6 spy who trained Ruth. Similar to Earth 1, I tried getting the Carol Stitch Go look, like he made himself, still with stitch lines and marks being left all over the place, but with the rest of the suit including a lot of old school tactical equipment, including a lot of straps, climbing rope they use instead of a grappling hook, and actual smoke grenades instead of smoke pellets. His colours were interesting to pick out. Originally, I wanted to go for a classic blue and grey, but I switched it to black and grey because it seemed more fitting to the character, but including more purple gloves and yellow utility belt, similar to the Golden Age, using a fan design colour scheme that I really liked. And boom, Batman.
Okay.
Oh, that's sick. I love that you gave him the purple gloves.
I, unlike the other two, in this design process, I'm not the biggest Batman nerd, so I decided to go for a more goofy take, something a little more silly, had a bit more whimsy, because I don't know my Batman lore very well at all. So I decided to base my designs off of the Italian theatre troupe of Commedia dell'arte. To give a brief overview, the Commedia dell'arte is an Italian form of early professional theatre centered around a set of stock characters, including, interestingly, the character of Arlecchino, who is now better known as Harley Quinn, who is quite obviously inspiration for the Batman villain. This tiny little itty-bitty link between the two was my only rationale in deciding that this was a good idea. I struggled quite a lot with my Batman design, trying to balance both elements of the classic Batman designs and the actual costuming style of the Commedia dell'arte. Quite noticeably, he doesn't have a big bat symbol like embossed on his chest like in many more armored designs. However, I included it down the line with it being on his little button, which I should have probably mentioned when that was popping up on the speed pane, but I don't really have much to say about my Batman. He's got an asymmetrical cloak pin just to add a bit more funky design. What you'll notice with all of my designs for this is there is hair out because Commedia dell'arte masks, which is another thing I wanted to play with while doing these designs, only cover traditionally the eyes and the nose, which works perfectly for, well, not really Batman, but hey, it's a mask and I can work with it. Quite irritatingly, while I was working on this, I did all of the body sketches before to save myself time while I was doing the actual design process, and OBS did not record those parts despite me triple checking that it was recording.
Oh my god, it's the Batman.
This is not what I was expecting.
Not what you're expecting, but I live to surprise.
Italian
I
man.
actually love that.
Italian man.
For the Riddler, I decided to reimagine him as a radio show host that would run some kind of puzzle or quiz show, but then leave cryptic clues in his broadcast that lead to whatever crimes he's committed. This is when I really began researching 1930s fashion, and I tried to recreate items as accurately as I could while also keeping them somewhat stylized. I gave him very typical clothes of the era, but I wanted to add some elements of showmanship to him. As well, he may not be a camera actor, I pictured this as what he'd wear for photo shoots or public appearances. While I had chosen to go with a black and white aesthetic, I did decide to give each villain one colour, and Riddler of course got green. My favourite element to make was the cane, which I made into a microphone with part of the ring being removed to create a question mark shape. And this was my final design.
Oh, he's Charlie Chaplin!
Oh my god, I love the question mark and cufflinks.
Cufflinks.
The cane.
I love the cane. I wanted to point out the cane.
Now for my Riddler, I'm a huge fan of the Telltale design and characterization of him. I want to look at him through a new angle and a new backstory. This version was the former vigilante back in the 50s, as this universe version of The Question, considering both use question theming. So tying together seemed like a fun idea. I based a lot of his outfits off his old persona, but replacing the Question's blue for the Riddler's green and purples, giving him that classic mask and cane to go with it, while also giving him the Telltale hood because I really like that design. The Riddler in present day is a jigsaw-like serial killer, killing criminals as a form of justice, with his new persona as the Riddler. Something clearly happened to the Question to start him down this road of killing. But what? Potential stories. I also made a question code version of the design to show both personas.
Aw, shit, yes.
Yeah, I really like that. It's a really interesting idea to combine the Riddler and the Question.
For my design for the Riddler, I decided to mess around more with the question mark shape. I tried to include it in his mask of sorts, but that wasn't going to work, so I instead made it the swoop in his hair and the pin holding the feather to his hat. I needed to keep him lanky and distinctly different to Batman in whatever ways that I could, while trying to keep the costumes all uniform to suit Commedia dell'arte, which was quite tricky, I won't lie. I settled on keeping the big question mark on the front of his chest. I debated working around it and trying to do something else, but it made the most sense in the end for his design, so we stuck with it. For his color palette, I again stuck with very classic design inspiration for his color palette, in part due to the fact that I just think the Riddler has a good color palette. I think it works, but also so that each design also had that familiar feel, like when you're looking at an old painting, it's just like, yeah, that's an old painting. Yeah, those are Batman characters. It makes sense. I tried to include a classic Commedia dell'arte inspired pattern on his suit. However, I decided that it would be too overcomplicated for the design and also meant that I was going to have to draw stripes a lot and make them all uniform, and about 20 minutes into trying to get them to work, I decided it was not happening.
I love how the hair makes up the question mark. That's just such a cool design. It's so weird but interesting.
Another staple of Commedia dell'arte is big hats with big feathers, so...
I mean, that is a big feather. Two-Face is the one I struggled with the most, simply because I couldn't think of what to do differently for him. I chose to make him a veteran that received his wounds from the First World War. I came up with lots of ideas of where his story could go after that, but none of them actually gave me any ideas for his design. In the end, I decided to just keep things simple, and model him after 30s gangsters. Again, I tried to match the real life clothing as much as I could. I gave one side of his suit a pinstripe pattern, simply because I thought it looked cool. I gave him a hat, simply because I couldn't find a single image of a gangster from the 1930s that didn't have one. The colour I chose for Two-Face was purple so I could colour his face, and I added a few other purple elements to balance out the design. For his coin, I decided to instead have it be a damaged war medal, as I liked the idea of it representing the best and worst of him. And this was my final look.
I love the purple on it. I love like the purple trim on the hat and the purple trim on the, Now, Two-Face, he was one I had an idea in mind, but wasn't sure on which way to take it. This all stemming from me really liking the idea of Billy D. Williams as Two-Face, and taking influence from the Lego Batman movie, as that is one of the few official versions of Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. But instead of making him a district attorney, I went down the route of being a civil rights activist who had a good heart and fought for the right things, before being scarred so heavily that he slowly descended into madness as a broken man, quite similar to The Dark Knight. Considering I was moving away from the district attorney route, I looked at fashion from the time and found this really cool looking outfit, which was AI, so, no more issues from stealing it. I used this outfit as I just stole it because it's AI, who cares? But I went with the Arkham approach of instead of having two color schemes, I went for one side being heavily burnt, so it was a two-tone look instead of two colors, with his skin and hair being a deep reddish purple in the same vein as Lego Batman, and it blended together well with the rest of the color scheme. And here's Two-Face.
Oh yes,
Aw,
this is the
yes!
one I wanted to see. I really like how you've done the colours for the suit.
Next up we have my Two-Face design, which was another reason why I wanted to do the Commedia dell'arte inspired designs, as I wanted to play around with him having multiple masks. So as you can see, I included the comedy and tragedy masks as like little props for him to hold, because I wanted to do something fun. And then I kept up the idea of the Commedia dell'arte masks, but I actually broke his down the middle to keep up this Two-Face imagery. And then just to work with that, I obviously gave his costume a split down the middle, just like classic Two-Face, while in keeping with the actual design laws of Commedia dell'arte. What you will notice is I have a lot less lore to talk about with these designs than Dan or Dilly do. That is simply because, again, as I prefaced, I'm not as big of a Batman nerd as the two of them. I just heard character design and instantly agreed to the project. So, there's that. I wrestled with the idea of giving him, like, different prints on his costume. I thought about it hard. I was going to give him something more complicated than what I settled with, but I wanted to keep these relatively animation friendly. They're not really, but they're a lot closer to being animation friendly than my original design ideas for them, so if I was to ever animate them, which I won't because I have too much coursework to do, I wanted it to still be semi-feasible.
That's so cool, the two, halves, the tragedy and happiness, the tragedy...
Comedy. Tragedy and comedy.
Scarecrow is amongst my favourite Batman villains, so it was easily the one I was looking forward to doing the most. For this version, I decided to change Jonathan into Janet Crane, as I thought she'd be far creepier with a nurturing, almost motherly voice. I wanted to make them a doctor at Arkham Asylum that performed fucked up experiments on inmates, not too dissimilar to real life mental institutions of the era. I initially was going to dress Scarecrow as a doctor, but I found the overall aesthetic of the time to be a bit bland, so I instead chose to give her a nurse's uniform, which I figured would be more recognisable. The clothes were very simple to model. I added a bag over the head for the mask, and some rope elements inspired by the Arkham Asylum version. Scarecrow took the least amount of time to create, but it's probably my favourite design I made for this project. And this was the result.
Oh my god, I love that. I love
Girl!
Okay,
No, your Scarecrow's definitely my fave.
Yeah, it's my favorite as well. It's so different, but it's just so better. for my version of Scarecrow, I went the most different with him, while trying to keep true to the character and the setting. The base idea was playing into that paranoia of America during the Cold War, with this version being the one to heighten those fears and doubts, with his design incorporating a lot more reds, which isn't typical colour for the character, literally making him the Red Scare. But funny enough, I actually took inspiration from the Prowler from the Spider-Verse, with his slender and speedy look, using a cloak I came across from a fan design to make him look like the anti-Batman, with red night vision that would just pop in the dark. This was actually inspired by a real conspiracy of the Vietnam War, with some soldiers apparently seeing demons using the red night vision. So this version of Scarecrow constantly sees demons, making him a lot more crazy and making him a lot more prone to blast people with his fear toxin to make them more, fearful. I don't know, he's just Scarecrow.
Oh,
Oh, fuck off!
hello?
The Cape Crusader versus the Red Scare. I'm amazed that was never a comic.
We love some good hallucinogenics. Hashtag not sponsored. Finally, we have my design for the Scarecrow. I wanted to give him a big hat. I wanted his mask to be, more face covering than the others. However, I decided against having it be a full thing and decided to sub out the bottom half of the Scarecrow sack on his face for a collar and just facial hair. Just peach fuzz. Just a little bit past that, I think. I gave him classy shoes, and I put a lot of emphasis on his hat. I gave him 2 feathers. That's quite a status symbol. Color palette, again, I just picked them from classic design inspirations. I didn't want to stray too far from what was familiar in Batman designs, color palette wise, considering how much I was straying from classic Batman in every other feasible way. I made them clowns. I gave him a, albeit messy, patchwork coat, just to keep the greens and the yellows and the natural colors. I really didn't do anything too fancy for any of these designs. I just made sure that they fit commedia dell'arte and still technically read as who the characters are meant to be, which I think I did a successful job of. I gave him a little pouch to keep all of his stuff. I don't want to swear. Kids watch Dan's videos. I'm minding my language. But I made sure that that would be like an acceptable Scarecrow outfit. I wanted to make him look lankery and scarecrowy without going into any of the more, I don't know, fancier Scarecrow designs where he's got a lot more going on. I wanted to keep him very classic and costumey, as I wanted to keep a very costumey aspect throughout all of my work. As, again, it's based on the theatre troupe and theatre costumes.
It's such a cool design.
I really wanted just the scene of so Riddler goes up and he does a big performance, and then Scarecrow walks out with the 2 feathers, and then Riddler's like, son of a bitch.
Batman, Batman, pew, 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 pew.
Huh? Oh shit, we've got the record and outro. So this was our Batman project. I would like to thank my friends Calcifer and Dilly for agreeing to do this with me. It was a lot of fun, and I hope we get to do more of this in the future. And if we were to do another one, what would you like to see? Another Batman video, expanding upon our ideas, or maybe something completely different?